Welcome back to Rugby Obsession. If you love these deep dives into rugby, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Today, we're going to be tackling a position that often doesn't get the recognition it deserves, the blindside flanker. And to help us break it all down, we've got our rugby expert with us.
Always happy to dive into the nitty-gritty.
And to really get into it, we're going to be looking at a recent article from Rugby Pass. It compares two masters of the craft, Francois Cros of France and Ireland's Peter O'Mahony.
Yeah, it's a really interesting article.
Yeah, it really highlights just how much these guys do that doesn't always make the highlight reel. The article describes Cros as a master of the dark arts. Love that phrase. Can you unpack that for us a little? What makes him so effective in that role?
Well, the article gives a great example. Cross's clean out on Billy Vunipola during the Six Nations last year. It wasn't like a massive hit, but it was perfectly timed and executed and allowed Antoine Dupont to get that ball out quickly and launch a counterattack. That's kind of impact a blindside flanker can have. You don't always see it, but it's game-changing.
Right. So much of what they do happens in the middle of everything, away from the cameras.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the offensive line in American football.
Yeah.
They don't score the touchdowns.
Yeah.
But they make them possible.
Exactly. And the article actually compares Cros to Jack Willis, who plays open side flanker for Toulouse. And it's a really good way to see the difference between the two positions. Willis, he's more of a breakdown specialist. He's all about disrupting the other team's ball. Cros, he's the stability, he's the power, he makes sure his team keeps possession and can build attacks.
So you need that balance in the back row.
Yeah.
You need the disruptive guy like Willis, but you also need that rock-solid presence like Cros. The article mentions some legendary back rows, the All Blacks with Wetton, Jones, and Shelford, or later with Canino, McCaw, and Reed. It seems like that blend of skills was so important to their success.
Absolutely. Each player in those trios had a specific job. They complemented each other perfectly. And a strong blindside flanker, that was essential. Think of it like a well-oiled machine. Every part has to work perfectly for the whole thing to run smoothly.
Yeah, and talking about legendary matchups, the upcoming match between France and Ireland, it's going to be epic. Especially with Cros and O'Mahony going head-to-head. The article calls it a mouth-watering confrontation, and I have to agree.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
So listeners, don't forget to subscribe to Rugby Obsession for more deep dives like this one.
We love having you.
Now, the article quotes Richie Gray, who's played against O'Mahony a lot. He says O'Mahony is a nightmare to play against. What makes him so tough to face?
Gray talks about O'Mahony's ability to kind of predict what the other team is going to do and disrupt their flow. He's a master of stealing the ball at the breakdown, and his line-out work is top-notch. He's just constantly putting pressure on the other team, forcing them to make mistakes.
So Cros might be more physically dominant, but O'Mahony brings this tactical awareness and disruptive energy. It really shows how there are different ways to be a great blindside flanker.
Exactly. And this matchup between the two is going to be fascinating. They have totally different approaches to the position, but both are incredibly effective.
Can't wait. And this makes me wonder, are there any other players who've really changed or excelled at the blindside flanker role? Maybe some unsung heroes from the past or present that deserve more attention. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.
That's a great question. There are definitely a lot of players who've flown under the radar, but have been absolutely essential to their team's success.
Yeah, it really reminds you that in rugby, every little thing matters.
All right, every inch.
Yeah, and the guys who nail the basics, the ones who just keep grinding, they often make the biggest difference.
And talking about making a difference, the article also brings up how England has been struggling lately and how they haven't had a standout blindside flanker. Do you think that's been a big factor in their inconsistency?
I think it's definitely a part of it. I mean, if you don't have a real force at blindside, the team can lose that edge, that ability to control the pace of the game and really impose themselves.
Like they're missing that anchor, the player who sets the tone for the whole pack. Yeah, exactly. The article even suggests that England's kind of, lack of a world-class blindside has made them weaker at the breakdown, and they've struggled to gain momentum in big games.
Yeah. That makes sense. It really shows you how crucial this position is, even though it doesn't always get the attention. It's not just about individual talent either. It's about how that player fits into the whole team effort.
Absolutely. A great blindside flanker can make the whole team play better. They give the open side the space to do their thing, and they create opportunities for the number 8 to make those big runs.
So they're kind of like the conductor of an orchestra, making sure everyone's in sync.
That's a great way to put it. And actually, the article does point to one young English player, Chandler Cunningham South, as a potential star.
Oh, yeah. He's been really impressive playing for Leicester Tigers. What do you see in his game that makes you think he could fill that gap for England?
Well, their article talks about his work rate, his physicality, and his willingness to learn. He's got all the natural talent. But what's really stood out to me is his dedication to mastering the finer details of the position. The article even quotes his coach saying that he's a sponge, always soaking up information and trying to improve his technique.
That's the kind of attitude that separates the good players from the great ones.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just about physical skills. It's about having that rugby IQ, understanding the game so you can anticipate what's going to happen and react accordingly.
Exactly. The article uses this word minutia to describe all those subtle things that set apart the world-class blindsides from the rest. It's those small adjustments in body position, those split-second decisions that can make all the difference.
It reminds you that rugby is all about constant learning and adapting. It makes me even more excited to see how Cunningham's South develops. He could be just what England needs.
Definitely keeping my eye on him. And hey, if you want to stay ahead of the game and get those deeper insights into the world of rugby, make sure you subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
Yes.
Great point.
We'll keep you updated and entertained with expert analysis and discussions that really make you think.
Absolutely. Now, before we finish up, I want to go back to something we touched on earlier. The unsung heroes of rugby. We've been talking about Cros and O'Mahony, even Cunningham South, as these guys who really show how important the blindside flanker is. But what about the players who maybe didn't get as much attention, but were just workhorses for their teams? The guys who laid the groundwork for success, even if they weren't always in the spotlight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Rugby is a team sport. And sometimes the most important players aren't the ones scoring the tries. They're the ones doing the stuff that no one really notices. But that makes those tries happen.
Right. And that's what makes this whole look at the blindside flanker so interesting. It shows you there's so much more to the game than what you see on the surface.
For sure. It's a chance for fans to really get a deeper understanding of rugby, to see beyond the flashy plays and the big hits and appreciate those players who might not get all the headlines, but who are totally vital to their team winning. It's like those offensive linemen in American football again, right? You rarely hear their names, but they're the ones protecting the quarterback and opening those holes for the running backs.
Exactly. And in rugby, the blindside flanker is often that unsung hero, doing the dirty work, the hard work that lets the whole team run smoothly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main thing you want our listeners to take away?
I think it's about appreciating how complex and beautiful rugby really is, understanding that every position matters, and that even the roles that don't get a lot of attention can have a huge impact on the game.
I like that. And for all you rugby fans out there, make sure to subscribe to Rugby Obsession for more in-depth analysis, great conversations, and of course, more deep dives into the world of rugby.
We'll keep looking at the tactics, the players, and all the stories that make this sport so amazing.
Thanks for joining us on Rugby Obsession. We'll be back with another episode soon, looking at another fascinating part of the game we all love.